Hello and welcome back to my channel, Mint with Mare. All right, you all, I recently asked if there are any topics around mental health that you would like me to discuss some more. There are lots of different topics. There was some about narcissistic abuse, which I will go into. There were some people that asked about dependent personality disorder, people pleasing, and I brought up codependency. So they all kind of fall under the same umbrella. So I wanted to break that down. And some of you wanted to know, why do we people please? How does this happen to us? Some of you asked what you can do to fix that. And that's what I definitely want to give information about, because I want you all to have some tools to take with you if you are dealing with people pleasing tendencies. So let's just break it down first. What is people pleasing? People pleasing is a personality trait that is known as sociotropy, which is where you're just feeling overly concerned with other people's feelings and preoccupied with your need to gain approval from other people. And earning this approval is a way that you see as maintaining a relationship. So if you're a people pleaser, you have a very hard time saying no. You are often preoccupied with what other people are thinking about you, and you will feel guilty when you say no to people. You fear a lot that if you turn someone down or you say no and do something that is right for yourself, that you might be perceived as mean or selfish. You will often agree to things that you don't actually want to do, or you're doing things that you don't actually like to do. You will struggle with low self-esteem because you want people to like you, and you feel that doing things for them will earn their approval. I do have some people-pleasing tendency because I have noticed that, and I used to say sorry all the time. And if you notice that you're always saying sorry and apologizing for things, that's a trait of people-pleasing. Think about it. Do you ever take the blame for things, even though it's not your fault, just to diffuse the situation? That's people pleasing. You may also neglect your own needs to help other people. Sometimes you'll actually agree with someone even though you think differently, just because you don't want to deal with the conflict. And I definitely think that there are times when it causes you more stress to be honest about how you feel about something, a topic, let's say if it's around politics. But if you are doing this consistently in your life, something to take note of. Let's think about codependency. You all have probably heard that word thrown around. This is when you will do so much for another person that you actually keep them from sitting in the discomfort of their own choices. It typically is where there's an excessive psychological or emotional reliance on a partner, a parent, someone else. You have a hard time making decisions because you feel as if you have to get the approval from everybody else first before you make a move. One of the best things that I ever did in life is when I started to let this go, and I just went based on my intuition and on my gut feeling. But if you really, really examine it, what's going on here? You don't want another person to feel the discomfort that they're experiencing. You don't pay any mind to the discomfort that you might be feeling yourself. You don't want them to observe the truth. So you people please. You engage in something called shape shifting. And that's where you'll kind of dance around things and change things up so that there won't be conflict. Have you ever noticed that if you're ever around somebody kind of aggressive, or they're kind of like a ticking time bomb and you don't know what they're going to do, you'll start to shape shift around them and their volatility just so that you can study the water. So a lot of time, people pleasers, I'll look at them as people who are just trying to study the waters or to find like an equilibrium. Codependency is also problematic because you are taking on the effects of someone else's choices, and then you're crafting an environment around someone else so that they don't actually have to feel their own pain, so that they don't have to actually experience their own consequences or trauma or responsibilities of their choices. Let's say, for instance, that it's with addiction. A lot of time there's a people pleaser always in the mix that's trying to make it all okay for the addict so that they don't actually have to experience what they are trying to run from, I guess you could say. And it's problematic because you think you're being kind. You think that you are helping other people, that you are actually in service to someone else. What really is happening is that you are stunting your own growth, and you are truly caretaking to the detriment of your own wellness. So why does this happen? Why would we choose to people please? Why? What causes all of this? Look, not everything is about childhood, but a lot of it is. And typically people that become people pleasers or codependent or have issues with dependent personality disorders, they had parents that were one of two extremes. You can either have very overprotective parents, or you have underprotective parents where they're basically neglectful. And look, when I talk about parents being either overprotective or underprotective, people can get a little defensive because they might remember their parents in a very warm and loving way. And there is very much a part of that is innate in parents. And I understand that that's what sometimes confuses people. So it really is just parental emotional inconsistency that can contribute to people pleasing. Because think about a child. You have to depend on someone else. You need someone else to meet your basic needs. All right. It really starts out as a coping strategy to maintain attachment to the parental figure. Sometimes when you have overprotective parents, you become enmeshed with them. So you're so hyper aware of their fears, of their concerns, of what they're needing from you, and then you will do anything to maybe calm how they're feeling. On the flip side, if you have underprotective parents who it was really hard to get their attention, it was really hard to get your needs heard, and when parents kind of abandon you, you will maybe believe that there's something wrong with you, and that's why you have to people please or do things that are going to make other people happy. Children that are afraid of parental abandonment will often abandon themselves in their needs. Sometimes people that have people pleasing tendencies, they have a hard time even identifying what their needs are. As children, people pleasers start to learn that they are loved or shown love when they are doing things that make the parents happy, when they are conforming to the parents' needs and wants, submitting themselves to parental preferences. You will see that as rewarding. If you deviate from those things, then you know that your love could be taken away very quickly. And so it does teach you that love is something that is conditional. That you were a child that asserted your will that was contrary to what the parents' wishes were. These parents typically reacted critically, maybe withheld some kind of caring or support or positive time and attention. Think about that. If you deviate from your parents' preferences, and that could be about what sport you play or what classes you take or who you're hanging out with, if you deviate from what they see as right, then they can withhold things from you. So you learn as a child that if I don't do what other people want, or if I'm not pleasing them, then that means I'm not going to get love. Don't do what your parents' wishes are, then they could be very critical of you. And then that leads to maybe withholding encouragement or love or support. So the consequence of this is that as a kid, you're getting this message that you'll be rejected and abandoned if you do things that don't align with what they prefer or what they want you to do. When you're a kid, you still need your parents to help you meet some of your needs. So this puts you in a very scary position, and it creates a trauma response. You learn that you submit to the rules that are either implicitly or explicitly demanded by them. And then you learn in doing so, you will get the love and attention that you crave and that you need as a child. Or if you go against the parental preferences, then you are setting yourself up to have serious consequences. It involves a rupture that happens in the attachment and the bond between the child and their caregiver. So somewhere along the lines, a child learned that it would be safer for them if they would just submit to what other people, meaning their parents' needs were, so that they wouldn't have to focus on their needs for themselves. And then when you're constantly doing that, then you forget what your needs and your wants and your desires actually are. So it really starts to break down how you see yourself and how you feel about yourself. And it makes sense that you wouldn't want to go against your parents or you wouldn't do anything out of line, because then you would have to experience feelings of shame, humiliation, all of those things. So you then feel as if it's less hazardous to abandon the self and to run the risk feeling abandoned by your parents. Over time, there is this choice between self-abandonment and parental abandonment. So without the resources to fend for yourself, felt that it would be best to subjugate their budding individualism. So to put it in layman's term, instead of becoming your own separate person of who you are, independent of your parents, you are not able to do that. You aren't given the freedom to explore and figure out who you are. And so instead you just tend to go down people pleasing because it's easier. That is so detrimental. I always think about my son and that I gave birth to him and he can be whoever he wants to be. I'm not saying that I might struggle with it or it might be hard at times, but I did not birth him so that he could feed my ego and my needs. And I also didn't birth him so he could be a replica of me or a mini me. No, he definitely isn't, and I'm glad for that. And but I think sometimes parents have a really, really, really hard time when their children are different and have different thoughts or beliefs, or that they might not even be that different from their parents, but they're not given the space to explore it. So they tend to go down this path of people pleasing. And so when you think about parents that are underprotective or that abandon children, you learn that you were never enough to get their attention. And so you're trying and trying and trying, and you haven't learned. You're constantly, as a child, you need to have some type of understanding of yourself from your caretakers. You gain some type of understanding of yourself from your caretakers. And if your caretakers are not available to you, you will then internalize that and believe that there is something wrong with you. And so you will look to other people to gain validation or attention or worth. And so it really is where if you are any extreme, if you're a parent on the side where they're overly protective or critical, and then the ones that are underprotective and don't care what you do or say, both of those are problematic. So what do we do with this? I could go on and on and on about this, because when you move to dependent personality disorder, that's usually a sign that there was some significant trauma underneath it all. There was very significant PTSD or complex PTSD, which I will go into in another video. But what can you do now if you are dealing with this? If you identified with any parts of this, I've got some things that you can do right now. First thing that I want you to know is that you don't have to do anything suddenly. It's all about small steps. So you might have a hard time saying no to someone. So the first thing that you could do is say, let me get back to you on that. Let me think about it and I'll let you know. Like if somebody asks you to do something and you're not sure, instead of just instinctively saying yes to it, taking a beat and taking a moment and saying, let me think about that and I'll get back to you. And not to expand and give someone all of the reasons why you can't do something. You don't owe that to anybody. You can just say, you know what, I don't have that time. I don't have time to do that. I'm so sorry. Or not even say sorry. Say, you know what, I don't have time to do that. That doesn't work with my schedule. So start to experiment with setting boundaries, or by saying no, or put some limits down. So you're starting small with just giving yourself a little bit of breathing room, giving yourself a beat. Like, don't respond with yes right away. Even if that's your instinct, don't do it. Even if you want to do it, don't say yes right away. Challenge yourself. Okay, this is the starting small. So this just means that you're stalling for time, because if you overcommit yourself, if you do something you don't want to do, all it's going to do is perpetuate more and more anger and resentment toward other people. You've got to think to yourself, how much time will this actually take? Is this something I really want to do? Do I even have the time to do this? How stressed am I going to be if I say yes? Like, these are the questions you have to ask yourself, is that you have to assess the request. If you've been a people pleaser for a long time, more than likely there are people that recognize this in you and use you for it. So you need to look for signs that you are maybe being taken advantage of for your generosity. Think about it. Are people asking you to do things because they know you won't say no? Think about it. Are there ever times whenever somebody wants something from you, but when you actually need something from them, they're just unavailable? Avoid making excuses. Avoid blaming other obligations for your inability to participate. You don't need to do that. You don't owe anyone anything. And look, if you go on and on about why you can't do it, they might be able to poke holes in your reasons for not doing it. And they also adjust what they're asking for so that you do join in some degree. So just no. That's all you have to say. I want you to be aware that relationships are a give and take. There's a reciprocity. It is beautiful. It's the give and take. If you notice that there's more take from you than give, have to take note of it. And it is also your responsibility to start to change that. There might be resistance, there might be reaction to that, but that's okay. And look, you can help when you want to help. You don't have to give up being kind and generous to other people. No, there is probably a great deal of altruism that you have, but you must examine your motivations and your intentions. Don't do things because you fear rejection. Don't do things because you want approval or you think it's going to get you approval. Do the things, but just do them on your own terms. Believe me, you can free yourself of this. You have a choice. You have freedom. You know, there's been times whenever I've been pressured by people to go out and join. And yes, as much as I would love them, I know my limits. And if I just don't feel like it, that's enough. I'm sorry, I don't feel like it. If they're going to make you feel really, really bad about it, I don't know. You got to think about whether they should be in your life or not. And one last thing, really pay attention to how you feel around people, around certain people. Sometimes things can look really great and wonderful on the system, on the surface, but I don't know, if you notice that your energy is getting zapped by someone, that every time you're around them, you like feel like you need to take a nap afterward, you've really got to take note of this and think about yourself and treat yourself like your best friend. I mean, if you notice that somebody zaps your energy and you don't want to spend as much time with them, then just don't spend as much time with them, and that it's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. This also will tie into ending relationships or situationships, even friendships, because I think that a lot of times we do outgrow things in our relationships with people, but we think we're a bad person if we would end them. And you're not. You're not, okay? I promise. The sooner that you learn this, the better off you're going to be. Trust me. Okay, I know this is just a start. I hope that this was helpful. Please leave me any of your questions or any recommendations for future videos. And I hope that this helped to some degree, but we can dig in even further if you like. All right, you all take care now. Bye-bye.